All right, today we're going to talk about the AET assessment. Think of it as a tool that helps you see the invisible forces, the ones that create friction and tension inside an organization. So let's set the scene. If you're leading a team or a company that's going through change, you know that feeling, right? That constant undercurrent of pressure. It's something you can feel, but it's often really hard to put your finger on exactly where it's coming from. And let's be honest, for most organizations these days, the pace of change isn't some abstract concept. It's just daily life. And that relentless pace means everyone has to adapt, all the time, from the newest hire right up to the leadership team. And the thing is, these pressures don't come at you one at a time, do they? Nope, they all hit at once. You're trying to digitalize, you're figuring out new ways of working, you've got cost pressures, plus your employees have new expectations. Oh, and so does society. It's a massive balancing act.
And this is exactly where that friction starts to build up. But here's the key thing. It's almost never about bad intentions. People aren't trying to cause problems. It's usually a systemic thing, a quiet tension that grows out of unclear decisions, fuzzy roles, and shifting priorities. And that's what the AET assessment is designed to do, to bring those systemic issues into the light without blaming anyone.
Okay, so how do you actually see these hidden tensions? Well, you can think of the assessment as a kind of mirror. It's designed to reflect your organization's own internal logic back at you, but in a really clear, structured way. So what is it really? At its heart, it's a diagnostic tool, and its main job is to get a conversation started. Now, this is super important. It's not here to judge if your organization is good or bad. It's not about morality. Instead, it measures your capability to make solid, well-grounded decisions, especially when the pressure's on. And to do that, the tool breaks down this big idea of capability into 5 different perspectives, or you could think of them as lenses. As you look through each of these 5 lenses, a clear picture starts to emerge of how your organization really functions when things get tough. All right, these 5 perspectives are really the core of the whole framework. They give everyone a shared language to talk about what's actually going on. So let's walk through them one by one. First up, we have ethical leadership. And we're not talking about some vision statement hanging on the wall. This is about real behavior. It asks a simple question. When things get difficult and there's no obvious right answer, how do our leaders actually make a call? That's the real test, isn't it? The second pillar is all about balance. You know how it is? Every big decision is a trade-off. You're balancing financial goals, the impact on your people, and your own principles. So this perspective looks at whether you're making those trade-offs consciously, or if one thing, say the budget, always wins out without any real discussion.
Third, there's engagement and participation. We all know that you can't just force change from the top down and expect it to stick. People have to believe in it. So this pillar asks a really basic but powerful question. Who is most affected by this decision, and are we actually listening to them?
Number 4 is alignment, and this one is fascinating because a lot of the time what feels like an ethical issue is really a problem with the structure. It all comes down to clarity. Is it crystal clear who's responsible for what? Do people have the actual authority they need to do their jobs? Or are you accidentally setting them up to fail? And the 5th and final pillar is sustainability and social responsibility. This is where we zoom out. It's about looking past the next deadline or the next quarterly report and asking, what's the long-term impact of our decisions on the community, on the environment, and, of course, on our own reputation and the trust people have in us? So, you've looked at your organization through these 5 different lenses. Now what? Well, this is the part where it goes from being a simple diagnosis to becoming a really powerful dialogue. What it does is make 3 things super clear. First, it shows you your strengths, the things you're already doing right that you can lean into. Second, it points out your blind spots, those hidden risks you might be missing. And third, it shows you the gap between what you say your values are and what people actually experience day to day. And honestly, this is where the magic happens. It takes all those vague gut feelings, those private frustrations you hear in the hallway, and it turns them into a common, objective language. Suddenly, everyone has a shared starting point for a real constructive conversation. And the results, well, they're often shown visually in a way that goes way beyond just a bunch of scores. When you look at a chart like this, the point isn't to judge the high or low numbers. The point is to see the pattern, the overall shape of how your organization makes decisions. You can see in an instant where things are strong and where the gaps are. It makes a complex system feel suddenly very clear.
And that just completely changes the conversation. You go from trading anecdotes and talking about gut feelings to looking at actual data-based patterns. Instead of every department speaking its own language, you start to build a common one. And most importantly, the conversation stops being about who's right or wrong morally and starts being a smart analysis of how your organization actually works.
So you might be wondering, why is this especially relevant for, say, a medium-sized company? Well, think about it. In a medium-sized organization, there's nowhere to hide from these kinds of issues. You don't have layers and layers of bureaucracy to soften the blow. When roles get fuzzy or a decision feels unfair, that lack of clarity hits home. It's felt personally by your people every single day. And that's precisely why a tool like this can be so powerful. It's about being proactive. It gives you a map of the territory before conflicts blow up, before small frictions become big problems, and crucially, before you start losing the trust of your team. It's so important to be clear about what this is and what it isn't. This is not an audit looking for who to blame. It's a mirror to help you see yourselves more clearly. It's not a judgment on individuals, it's a starting point for a better conversation. It's really an invitation for everyone to step back and reflect together. And this idea really gets to the heart of it. Ethical transformation sounds big, but it just means being intentional about how you make decisions. You design the process so that people stay engaged, so that responsibility is clear, and so that every decision you make actually builds trust for the long haul. So, let's end with a question for you to think about. If you could hold up that mirror to your own organization, if you could make its unwritten rules and its decision-making logic totally visible, what patterns do you think you'd see?